Thank you to everyone for being here at Abbotsford and Northmead office, and those who are joining us online today. Solved is pleased to welcome you all to another exciting series of the Technical Talk. My name is Hassan Malik, and those who don't know me, I'm the lead engineer at Solved, based in Melbourne office, and I will be your host for today's event. Please make sure to put your microphone on mute when you're not speaking. Just a quick snapshot of today's event. We will start with a welcome note by Amelia, volunteer coordinator. Then we have our guest speaker, Professor Bronwyn. Thank you for joining us today. She'll be presenting her work about the 3D food, followed by the rapid fire session where we have two volunteers, George from New South Wales and Dawn from Victoria, presenting their projects. And our volunteer Kirk from the Bowen branch will share his experience in the inclusive sports days. You will have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presenter's talk. So I encourage to ask questions that you may have. People who are joining us online can ask questions through the chat box as well. And at the end, our board director and interim deputy chair, Laura, will be joining us online to close the meeting. We also have a morning tea organized for everyone at Melbourne and Sydney office at 11. So before further delay, I would like Amelia to start with her welcome.
Hello, everyone. Everyone can hear me, I guess. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Okay, great. I'm just wanted to say, Jenny Stefan, our manager of volunteers and workforce, is unfortunately unwell today. So I'm going to step in and give the speech that she prepared, just as a last minute thing. But thanks to Jenny for putting this together. She put a lot of work into actually organising this event. So it's a pity that she can't be here. But I would like to, as Hassan has already, welcome to our volunteers and our guest presenter, Professor Bronwyn Hemsley, and all staff for being here. I acknowledge that we are hosting this meeting from the lands of the Wiradjuri people in Abbotsford and the Burramatagal people in Parramatta, and the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all live and work. I pay my respect to the elders past, present and emerging, and recognise and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to country. Today, we have come together during National Volunteer Week to celebrate, educate and acknowledge volunteers for your commitment to both the organisation and to our clients. Through your volunteering efforts, whether that is technical collaboration, freedom wheels, builds and trials, serving on the board, driving, administration work or inclusive sports days, together we all work towards achieving the best outcomes for our clients. We're better together, which is the theme of National Volunteer Week this year. As a merged organisation, we are evolving to become stronger, more resourceful and skilled. As they say, two heads are better than one. We now have 230 volunteer heads and 30 working staff working together. Of course, we've had challenges, some that were to be expected with a merger, and some such as the COVID pandemic that were unexpected. Together, we have faced these challenges. During the lockdowns and restrictions, volunteers who could continued to volunteer. Many not-for-profit organisations had to stand down volunteers and subsequently lost many of them. We are fortunate and proud of our volunteer workforce to have endured these challenging times and have remained strong. We are pleased to say that after a quieter period during COVID, our client referrals are now increasing. Since July 2021, we have received 510 unique and adaptable solution referrals and 717 Freedom Wheels bike and trial referrals. We are steadily recruiting more volunteers than we are losing. This is a healthy sign. We can always do with more volunteers, so please, anybody, spread the word if you do have the opportunity. We're always looking for more. Some interesting facts about our volunteers. We have a total, as I mentioned, of 230 active volunteers. We have 162 in Victoria and 65 in New South Wales. We have a longer serving active volunteer, which has been 47 years. Wow. And the average age of our volunteers is 67. Interesting, in recent times, the number of volunteers recruited who are in full-time work has increased. In fact, since my time here, which has been just over a year, basically all the volunteers I've recruited, certainly in New South Wales, have been still working in some capacity, with many aged in their 20s and 30s. They bring a new set of skills that complement the skills of our more senior volunteers, which is very true. Our oldest volunteer is 93 and our youngest volunteer is 23. So that's quite amazing. So some volunteers undertake more than one type of volunteering. Many of our volunteers have been with us for a long time, 20, 30 years, etc. plus. Volunteers know a good thing when they find it. You have told us over the years that you gain a lot of satisfaction volunteering, with the main reasons being the satisfaction of seeing the smile on the clients' faces, combining your passion for inventing things to solve problems with a desire to help others, and to have an impact, donate your professional skills and challenge yourself. This week, we will send out a volunteer survey to get an up-to-date understanding of your satisfaction. So please look out for that. We do appreciate that feedback. All of our volunteers bring a passion and drive to help people achieve something they never thought they would be able to do. Most of our volunteers work in a team, either with staff or other volunteers. The 2022 theme of Better Together seems made for us. We are a very unique volunteer-based organisation, and with that we attract you professionals and a quirky bunch of tinkerers, whether it's with bikes or other equipment, inventors and thinkers, with a lovable, kind, generous, smart and clever bunch of volunteers you all are. You are truly valued by us, and we thank you for your wonderful contributions and commitment. Thank you for joining us to celebrate you, and happy National Volunteer Week.
Thanks, Amelia. Thank you very much for your kind words. And yeah, it's really great to have so many diverse set of volunteers across both states and the impact they make in our society, helping people with disabilities. Thanks a lot. I will be moving forward towards our next speaker. She's one of the really interesting speaker, and really thank you, Professor Brahman, for joining us. She's a speech pathologist and the head of speech pathology at the University of Technology, Sydney. And I would request her to start with her exciting talk on the 3D printed food.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. And good morning, everybody. And I'm really honoured to be invited to talk with you this week, especially Volunteer Week, and show you some of the new technologies, including 3D food printing, which not many people have seen in action. So I hope it's interesting. And it's not only people with disability that might benefit from some of these technologies, because they're developed actually for the general population. They need to be repurposed for people with disability to use. So as I show you the technologies, have a think about the ways that they might need to be adapted. And I think you volunteers are wonderful at this inventiveness. I'd also like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and their elders past, present and emerging as true custodians of knowledge of the land on which UTS stands and from where I'm presenting today. And Biskira Ma UTS Indigenous Health Discipline Wattle Seed artwork by Nathan Peckham represents our unity and diversity, which is also a feature of the TAD volunteers and all the teams that are working. So I'd also like to thank and acknowledge TAD and Hassan and Evan for connecting me with my dad, who's in this photograph, Dick Smith. Just here with some of the Bathurst group just this week. And I think some of the community that you can see in this photograph is really wonderful within TAD. And of course, I have to acknowledge my dad, who raised me as the 8th child of 9 in the spirit of an action of social justice through volunteering for St Vincent de Paul and then TAD, and through generosity and love in all that he does as a lifelong learner. So I hope to walk in those footsteps always. I also have to acknowledge there's some funding for this research from the National Health and Medical Research Council, the Australian Research Council and UTS. And there's a lot of other researchers involved in the teams where we do our work. So I'd like to acknowledge all of those. So here's some of the technologies I'll show you today. So the one on the left, you can see, is the smart speakers. Now, I'm not sure how many of you might use the smart speaker. This is the Alexa or the Siri, or, you know, they play music if you ask them to, or they turn on the lights, or they might shut the door in devices around the home. So they're becoming really helpful for people with disability. So I'll talk a bit about those. The ones in the middle, you might not have seen as often, but that's the virtual reality headset, where it covers your eyes and you can see like a movie inside, and it's like being immersed in an environment. And this one here is augmented reality. So that's like glasses, smart glasses that go over your other glasses, and they show you computerized images that overlay what you can see. So I'll show you that. And this is a 3D food printer. And it looks like a big microwave. And you can see, this is me and one of my students looking at it printing something. So I'll talk to you about all those things. But really, these smart speakers are the most affordable and the most common type of sort of advancing technologies. These ones are becoming more affordable, so more people, say physiotherapy or occupational therapy, are starting to use these to teach people things. And they're still a bit expensive, but they're coming down. And this one is really expensive. So 3D food printers are still not affordable, and they're really not yet working well enough for us to recommend them for people. So I wonder how many of you use a smart speaker at home. Now, this is a link to a survey. You don't need to go and do it, but we are interested to find out how people use Siri or Cortana or their Apple HomePod or their smart speaker, which has really got a microphone in it, and the microphone picks up your voice and you can tell it to do something or ask it something. So people with disability are using these to control their music, their lights, their devices in the home, like the kettle. You can buy smart devices that will talk to the speaker. So the speaker hears you say, "Hey, Alexa, turn on the kettle," and the kettle will turn on. So it's helpful for people with disability who might not be able to move around to be a bit more independent. So this is something that will probably be used more and more. Now, for people who can't talk, you might be thinking, oh, but there's a lot of people with communication disability who actually don't have a very strong voice, or they might only say a few words. So there's a lot of research, though, looking at this group to see what will help them. So there's a group of people looking at people with mental health conditions or intellectual disability and seeing how they use it. And one of their studies was my friends at Deakin University. They put a smart speaker in the homes of adults with intellectual disability, and they used it to help teach them some social skills. And they did that by telling stories. And the person listened to the story and then chose which action they would take in the story. So that was useful. And but you can see it's early days. And my friends at Boston Children's Hospital, they see lots of kids with autism. So they used the Echo, the Amazon Echo, that's Alexa, to try and get it to control an iPad. And that didn't work so well. So then they got the Echo Show, which is like Amazon Echo, where you talk to it, but it'll show you a picture. So telling a device to show someone a picture can help them to understand what you've said. So this Echo Show with the picture in the middle, that's something that might help people with autism. And there's another big study in the UK where they had lots of homes of adults with intellectual disability, and they put smart speakers in all the homes. And they measured, they taught the people how to use them, and the people who did have them in their home, their speech actually improved because they were talking to a speaker, and they had to speak up and they had to be clear. So they don't know why their speech improved, but I think it's interesting that if you talk to one of these speakers, you might have to be a bit more clear because it actually doesn't recognize human speech all that well. So you might have to repeat yourself or speak very clearly for it to understand. So this is Amazon Echo. Now, Amazon have reviewers, and on their website, this group of researchers looked at 346 reviews of the Amazon Echo, and they found a lot of reviews by people with disability. And they were saying it actually helps us. So even though we don't have a lot of research, we're hearing stories that it can help some people. So we think that probably smart speakers is going to come along as being something more common. So that's where you need tech volunteers who are familiar with this sort of smart technology, and get them on your teams. So this is a photograph, has some smart speakers set up. So on the left, it's in a home. And in the middle, there's an Echo Show in the hospital. So perhaps they're being used in hospitals. And on the right, there's a smart speaker being used in a physiotherapy lab. So if you can tell a speaker to do something, your hands are free to do something else. So that's handy. Okay, now we'll move on to virtual reality and augmented reality. So I wonder if any of you have ever used something like this. So I'll talk to you briefly about each one of these with this headset first. So, I'm actually going to focus on augmented reality. Okay, augmented reality, because I think it will be really helpful in teaching people how to do things. So in the future, it might actually be useful for teaching volunteers how to do things, like how to adapt a bike or how to modify technologies and assistive things. So we'll talk about augmented reality. So what is augmented reality? On the left, you can see there's a dinosaur, but that's actually in an iPad app. And the app is putting the dinosaur as if it's in the office. It's walking on the same carpet as the office. So that dinosaur is really not in our building. It's on the iPad. So that's one type of augmented reality. But this one is more immersive. It's as if you're going into that reality. So Lucy here, my colleague Lucy Bryant, is wearing the augmentative reality headset, and this is what she can see. So she can see a puppy dog that's a cartoon sitting on her floor, and she's holding the edge of the picture, and she can make it bigger or smaller. So this could be useful for if you were trying to show what a chair should look like in a room, or how big you wanted a bed to be in a room. So more like the design stage. And the bottom picture is a guide, and it's showing someone how to turn the page of a book. From the left, you can see the blue arrow and the dots. It's a guide. So we used the software that comes with this, and it wasn't all that hard, to make a guide. So I'm going to show you a video, and it's as if you are wearing the headset and what you can see. So the guide that we made was for making a cup of tea. So we know how to make a cup of tea, but we wanted to make a video to show people this is what it's like when you wear the headset and you're teaching someone to make a cup of tea. So I'll start the video and you'll see, okay, I'll just pause it. So on floating in the air in this kitchen, this is the guide. This is not there in reality, it's in the glasses. And it's got written instructions here, and it's got a video here. And Lucy is looking at this play button, and she's going to press play in a second, just with her eyes. So she's not using her hands, she's looking at the guide, and she's going to watch that video. So this kitchen is in our building, just down the road, down the corridor, and the guide you'll see happening now. So watch this white dot, and you'll see what she does. So she's looking at it, the eye gaze, and it's showing her a video of what to do. Stir the tea. So she can watch that and then she can copy it. So it's really handy for teaching people things. Now she's going to look at the next arrow, and she has to hold her eyes on there, and there's her cup. And can you see those arrows? And I'll stop it again here. You can see this hologram exclamation mark is showing her where the fridge is, and this hologram hand is showing her this is where you open the fridge. So she's going to look at the video. It's showing her what to do, so it's a video model. And she's now going to look at the hologram and follow those arrows. She can read the instructions. And there's the hand saying, there it is, put your hand there, open the fridge. Okay, I'm just going to pause it now. You can see the guide has moved because it knows where Lucy is, and it's put it back in Lucy's field of vision, so she can read the next step of the instruction. So watch this. She's pressed with her eye gaze. The milk's in the door, take the milk from the door. She's looking back at the clue, which is the photo. See that photo? So the person can get instructions. So just say you made a guide for a way to make something and you wanted it to be made the same every time. So you want to teach the volunteers, this is how we make this product, have the headset step you through making it first few times. And that's really what the guides is being used mainly to teach people in industrial settings. It's not yet being used a lot in therapy or in teaching someone skills. But it's good to see that it's something we could potentially use to teach someone with autism how to get ready for school, or how to pack a picnic bag, or even how to make a cup of tea so that they're more independent. But wearing the headset and knowing how to do the eye gaze, it still needs a bit of work to make it easier. It's still a bit hard to use. So let's talk about 3D food printing. Now, this picture down here on the left is a picture of me pointing to the screen on the front, and you'll see it has a big screen here. It's just like a touch screen, like an iPad, in the door of the device. And this over here is a canister where you put the food in. So it's a bit like an inkjet printer. You fill up the canister with the food. So it's a bit messy, and it's fiddly, and it's time consuming, and it takes a lot of effort. So, but that's what you have to do. I'll press play now on this video and I'll talk you through what we can see. So here we go. So it's a touch screen and you can press to see the recipes, and then there's little prints, little shapes that you can choose, but you have to scroll. And inside the door, you can see there's 5 canisters. So once you fill it up with food, you put the canister in the door and you shut it, and you choose the shape you want to print. So it's just like an inkjet printer. So here it is printing some icing, and it is going in slow motion. So you're not seeing it really smoothly, but it's showing you slowly, and it's building up layers. So how it makes 3D is by layering. It makes the layers and it's following a computer pattern that you picked that pattern and you've printed those layers to make it look nice. So the reason we're really interested in this one is because some people need to eat puree food all the time, and it can get really boring to eat pureed food, and it can be hard to look, it can look a bit unappealing. So we wonder if printing the food might make it look more attractive and more interesting to people, and they might be more likely to eat a little bit more. So this is another video that I'll show you, which is printing chocolate, and it's making a flat pattern. So it's still 3D printing, but it's printing a decorative plate pattern, which you could potentially then put something else on that's like your mashed potato spoon or whatever, or your dessert pureed fruit. But you can use any pureed food. So whatever the person likes to eat, then they can choose the shape, and that's how it works. So I hope that's demystified things a bit for you. I'll show you some photographs so that you can see a few more examples. So this is a chicken leg on the right, made of sweet potato. Now, we're looking at whether people prefer foods to look like what they are, or to look like anything at all. So I've already shown you that one. This is another one made of turmeric dip, same shape. This is a key. So we actually programmed this shape into the machine, and we said we want you to print this pattern that we could send to the machine with a computer assisting. You know, it's doing the print. This is the shape we wanted, so we managed to print the key. Okay. And this one looks like spaghetti, but it's mashed potato, and it was printed by the printer up high. So when it came out of the printer, it fell down into this shape, which is quite interesting. A lot of people like the look of that because it looks like spaghetti, but it's actually not. It's safe to eat as mashed potato. And that's salmon in a flour. So you can see there's a lot of issues with these devices. They all use the internet, right? They all use the cloud. So, and you have to have an account and log in. So they're all got issues with privacy and security and what happens with all your data. So it's really important to think, yes, they might be good technologies, but how much do people with disability, they also need to be involved in the decision to use these devices, and they might not like to share their data on the cloud and being able to control the settings and the privacy. So that's really important and really interesting, that everyone needs to know more about their rights to control what happens with their information from these technologies. So what do I make of all these devices? That they're kind of good and interesting, but they've still got a few problems with how usable they are, how easy they are to use. So there's this model of designing technologies, which is really about including the person with disability. So down the bottom of this virtuous tornado, as Utah Trevinaris in the US has made this model, is co-design things with people with disability, develop them with them in the teams, and then you implement them, see how they go, and you evaluate, are they working? And then you refine things. So I know you already do this in TAD because I've watched Dad do it for many years, that you're doing things in a cycle. And cycle 1 might be phase 1, cycle 2, it goes up till it gets better and better. And then the technologies are, more adaptable, more innovative, more accessible to other people, and more inclusive. And the design is more resilient than if you just made it and then said, okay, here you go, use it. It's better if you can design it with the person with disability. So what do you think will move Solve, TAD and tech forward? And I thought about this in terms of what helps us in digital technology research is collaboration. So there's lots of different disciplines involved in technology: physio, occupational therapy, speech therapy, engineers, rehab engineers, technologists, volunteers of all different disciplines and your backgrounds. So, and people with disability being at the centre. And I think encouraging volunteers to support others to use technology and getting help to use technologies that you would like to use. But having better person-centred engineering is really important, because I know how wonderful the work of engineers is, but it's about connecting across the teams. So in terms of these technologies, what will move inclusion forward? I think we need better speech recognition so that the devices really do understand older people, people with Parkinson's or stroke or weaker voices, people with disability. We need more privacy and control, because a lot of times we're not told what happens with our data. We need better devices that work properly and that look good, so they're not uncomfortable to use. This virtuous tornado, designs made with people with disability, and really they do need to get smarter, especially the 3D food printing. It's still quite, if you like, slow to use. It takes a long time, lots of effort. We need devices that will save people time, save them effort, and then make a better product. So we're working on, I've got an engineering student here as well. He's going to try and make a better 3D food printer to see if he can make one that prints more foods, like minced food, not only puree food. And more teams including technology. So I think that's about all from me on the devices, but I just wanted to give you a taste, a flavour of some of those things and see if you have any questions about any of those ones, the smart speaker or the augmented reality or the 3D food printing. And I can also read questions in the chat if you want to write them there.
So thanks, Professor Braun. I think we have a question from TAD Lab.
Evan here, Bronwyn.
Hello.
TAD Lab at Northmead. I've got two questions for you.
Yeah.
One, I'd really like to know if you've actually eaten the 3D printed food yourself.
Yes.
It'll be, that's part of the research, I would think. And my second question is, when I was thinking about the 3D printing of the food, I was just wondering whether it had anything to do with also that kind of the connection we make with the mind of what a food would taste like because of all the other senses we collate in our brain.
Yeah.
It is. So
yeah, I can talk about those two things. So it's interesting. We have printed quite a few things in the protospace at UTS, and I always show people what we've made, and I always offer them to have a taste. And sometimes people say, "Oh no, thank you," even though it looks nice. They're still a bit reticent, still a bit. I'm not sure if I want to, but actually, it tastes the same as what it's made of. So it might, your second question was, what if it tastes different to what you're expecting? Like the spaghetti I showed you, it would taste like mashed potato, not like pasta. So there's a bit of research on whether it's acceptable to people. And what we're finding is that most people want the printed food to look like the food that it is. They prefer if it looked like a chicken leg, if it was chicken, versus looking like a key or something different. So yeah, people do seem to want to eat what they expect and want it to taste like what they expect. So we need better shapes. It's hard to make pureed food stay in a shape. Now you know it's a liquid, the pureed food, so it's only going to be some tapered shapes or quite solid shapes that will stay in their shape. So there's not a lot of different shapes it can do. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thanks, Bronwyn.
Oh, that's okay. Any other questions?
Temperature. Temperature of the food. Temperature of the food. Yeah. So we've got a question from one of our volunteer. He's asking what's the temperature range of this 3D printed food?
That's a good question. It's not very hot. It's only keeping things warm, and that's because it was printing chocolate. So it warms it up to about 25, 26 degrees, and it's not hot enough for like if you were expecting to be hot food. So what we've found is that we heat the food in the microwave. Say we've made something that's designed to be eaten hot, like mince and pureed mince, and it's heated in the microwave. Then we put it in the printer and then print it, and straight away it's coming down in temperature already. So sometimes you need to re-microwave it to be hot enough, you know, for what you're wanting to eat. But the real reason that the device has that warm temperature is because if you put chocolate in there, it will harden and it won't flow. So yeah, there's issues there with the food. After it's printed, it might need to be re-microwaved.
Thanks. We have another questions, but I would be really excited to taste this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's especially when we print a lot of parts, and now I heard about this food. I'll be really excited to taste someday.
Well, I'm happy for anyone to visit UTS in the city at Broadway, and just let me know, and I'll take you into the labs and you can try some.
Thanks, Rowan. I think we have another question from TAD Lab.
Yep.
It's Matthew from TAD. With the speakers, are they becoming, I mean, you mentioned it with people with intellectual disabilities. Are they the norm now for people with physical disabilities in accessible housing and just general use, or is it fairly new for them as well?
I think I gave a talk to some technology experts a few weekends ago. Asked how many of them were using them. There was 33% of the audience smart speaker at home. So, and that was people really at the leading edge of technology in brain injury. So I'm not sure yet how many people in group homes yet have them, but I know there's a lot more people in society who are buying them. So they reckon that actually smart speakers will become a bit like the phone in the house, you know, that more people will have access to it, and there'll be more technologies that you can control it at, you know, by your voice. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for people with intellectual or communication disability, just as there is for other people. It might help them. Say, for example, if you've got a mealtime plan and your support worker comes to see you, and the support worker says, hey, Alexa, what's for lunch today? and Alexa can then say, look at the mealtime plan, or find out, okay, Thomas has a pureed meal, or instructions. So, hey Alexa, how do I use the hoist? And then get instructions. So I think it's really early days, but I think there's a lot of potential for the smart speakers.
Yep. Thank you.
We've got another question in the chat box by Kirk. He's asking, can you print using two foods at once? For example, mince and potatoes together, or it's just one material in technical words?
Oh, we have played with it a bit. You can put two foods in the one container, and then you end up with it looks quite nice actually, because it's got a bit of a variegated pattern. And so yeah, you can mix the food into the container. Yeah, you can. I guess it's only 90 mils, so it's quite small. It's more like the size of a snack. So for a whole meal, you'd probably have to print a few canisters worth of food onto the plate.
Thanks for the answer. Do we have any more questions? Yeah.
Just wondering, is the 3D printed food being used in hospitals anywhere, or is it still very much in the research phase?
It's not really, the device we've got is a domestic scale device. So it's not really being used in Australia in hospitals yet. We have had reports that it's being used in hospitals, in a small number of hospitals internationally, but it's really small scale, whereas hospitals have to feed lots and lots of people. So, you know, people say it would be helpful in aged care settings and hospitals, but there's really no evidence that it would be helpful. So that's what we're trying to determine. How useful is it really? And how does it need to improve to make it more useful? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. There's a comment in the chat too from Andy. You're saying your son has cerebral palsy and Google Home works really well for him. And he uses it to turn off the lights, play music, make an alarm to wake up, and made a big difference to his life. So thanks so much, Andy, for that. That's so true. Did you want to add anything to that, Andy? No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So any more questions? Oh, so he's got a, sorry, can you mute? Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for listening to the talk, and I'm really happy for you to be in touch. And now come and visit if you're in Sydney, and come and see the printer in action and the augmented reality.
I would love to visit someday. So,
well, when you're in town, it's right near Central Station, so it's not too hard to come visit. And you probably would love the 3D lab, not just the food printer, but all the other big printers.
Yeah,
3D printing.
It's really interesting to know that these sort of research is happening in our educational institute. So I think at some stage in the future, this might make a huge difference in helping people with solving disabilities. Yeah,
I think it will. But it's been great to collaborate with engineers here and with students who are trying to make and invent, you know, better 3D food printers. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah. So I really thank our guest speaker, Professor Bronwyn, on really exciting talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to request everyone to stay for a minute for a group photo. So before moving forward towards the volunteer presentation. So Evan, if you want to take a group photo at TAD Lab, and Tom, if you want to take a nice group photo of the audience here.
Yeah, sure. Right.
Miles, amazing. 2, 3. 10, 1, 2, 3. Amazing, thank you.
And I'll just take a screenshot of the people who are joining us from Zoom.
Actually, Andy's there. Unmuted if you wanted to add to his comment as well.
So screen. Just another minute and then we'll move forward. Just taking a screenshot. Thank you everyone, and especially to our guest speaker for a really exciting news. If you want to stay, you are most welcome to, but we know you are very busy, so it's totally on you to stay for the rest of our presentation. Thanks, Professor Braun. So. Sorry about that. So just moving towards our next presentations. So George, unfortunately, won't be able to present due to a technical issue. So we'll be moving forward to our presentation by Dawn, who's joining us today from our Abbotsford office. I would like to welcome Don to present for his project, Car Simulator.
Okay, the whole idea behind this was the Austin Hospital had a loan of a simulator that was in the surgery department. And the reason behind they had it was when somebody had surgery, they like to get them to transfer into a car before they let them go home, which meant that a relative or someone had to bring their car down. Can you get in the car, yes or no? And then go back into the ward and arrange a discharge date. So they said to us, let's, can we make this thing go up and down? So we did. We went to the records, we got a half car, cut it down the middle so that it's basically a quarter. And when we got it, it had all the dash and interior and everything in it. So we ripped all out, pulled the heater out of it, pulled the glass out the door, made it as light as possible, obviously disabled the airbags and removed them so that there could be no future explosions. And then set about making a frame for it to hold the car to make it go up and down. And if we go to the next one, we've ended up with something like this. So it's there, it functions as a car on the passenger side, and on the back, as you can see, it's got some level indicated on it. And you can be asked, what car do you drive? Oh, I drive a Falcon. Okay, that's about a normal car, so you bring it up to what you feel is a Falcon height. If it's four-wheel drive, you can bring it up even higher. I think we go from 325 seat height to the ground to something that's 6, I don't remember the exact measurement, probably 600 to 700 from the ground. So we accommodate all different types of cars. Now, it's not designed to be used when someone's in it. It's a situation where we know you drive this car, we'll set it up to the right height, transfer it in and out of that, under the supervision of the physios on site. Fine, you can get in the car, let's arrange you to get out of hospital. And that's really what it's all about. It's got 2 linear actuators on it, which will more than take the weight. The whole thing weighs about 400 kilos. The actuators will lift 800 each. We could have gone one actuator with a scissor lift, but because of the potential for a failure, although I must admit that on the peninsula when we build something, it's usually over-engineered. It wasn't going to fail. It was decided to go to 2 because they've got the lock on the nut should one fail, and it won't collapse. We've made sure there's toe clearance on it. All the bits and pieces are there. The actuators had to be linked together, which was done at Linac. The casters are the hospital grade casters, which lock in 3 different positions. You can lock them so that the thing can be moved straight ahead, so you haven't got a Safeway trolley going down the corridor. They can be locked so that they don't turn and they don't roll, or they can be unlocked where they can go in every direction you want. They're really good caster, actually. Lovely to work with. And if we go on to the next one, that's being tested at the rehab. That's Paul. He did most of the. I stripped the car. Paul did most of the assembly, and I made the cradle for it to go on. Paul's applied the woodwork just to dress it up and make it good. And we have to say that the staff were absolutely thrilled with it, which made us feel really good. So, and there's a finished object with the crew.
So thanks, Don. Really would like to have a round of applause for. And I think this project is a really good example of a diverse skill set of volunteers and health professionals coming together to come up with a really interesting solution, which will be helping a lot of patients, especially during their recovery stage. So do we have any questions for Dawn?
Don, was it a lot of work to get it back looking like a car?
Not really, because all we did was took the door off of it and put the door back on, but after we stripped everything, so that was fairly simple. You're talking about the wood paneling on the sides?
Just like it looks, right?
Yeah. Look, it's time consuming, everything's time consuming, but if you've got the skill set, nothing's hard. And
you make it sound easy.
Well, no, that's just not true. But so you have to remember too that my background is mechanic. I spent 50 years in the automotive industry, so that's second nature to me. Paul is excellent at drafting things, so we had a lovely set of plans to work from. And then it's just a case of putting it back together and finding little solutions for mounting bits and pieces. This one in particular, through pure good luck, the way the dash is mounted, it's bolted at both sides, but it also has a centre mount. And the centre mount was exactly where we wanted to cut it. So the centre mount worked beautifully to hold that side of the dash. It's just pure luck.
Can we just reverse back to the detail pictures, previous slide? Oh, yeah.
This one?
Yeah, it's just so we relate what Don was saying.
And then, as I said, Paul put the panelling in, worked out the heights on it. We had to supply operation instructions, which are stuck to the back of it, load rating, etc., and made sure it was stable. I can put my foot on both feet on the sill, open the door, and lean right back, and it won't fall over. But at the time, I was over 100 kilos, so that's a lot of weight on the door.
I think we've got another question from Rosemary.
So I know you've done, or there has been other ones done in the past that
Yes.
don't go up and down. Is the pressure on now to go back and retrofit those with the living room?
Well, funny you should say that. We are doing a second one now, which is a half car. It's got a passenger and driver side for Royal Talbot.
Yeah.
Royal Talbot, yeah. We could have just made that one go up and down, but it is I think a 1982 Commodore. It's been knocked around. It's looking pretty terrible. And we sourced another car for that, which in the long run is probably going to be easier to rebuild one and try and fix what's there. And there might be some issues, not issues, but I think they're also looking at putting in hand controls, possibly a wheelchair hoist to get on the roof, and also a lift, removable lift for the passenger side, to get, or the driver's side to get them in and out. That one, they want electric seats on it because they're talking about quadriplegics. So they can't physically slide a seat backwards and forwards or tilt it to get in and out. So that's part of the reason for the electric seats.
Thanks, Rosemary. I think we should keep moving towards our next speaker. So now I would like to request Kirk from our Bowen branch to talk about the Inclusive Sports Day. Yeah, on the Inclusive Sports Day. Over to Kirk. Unmute him. Kirk, are you there? Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Hi everyone. My name's Kirk Cressman. I'm from Geelong. I'm in the Barwon Solve TAD group, and down here we do a number of projects like everybody with the assistive technology and the Freedom Wheels, and we've also done a couple of the RMIT projects, and we've also been part of the Inclusive Sports Days. So I was just going to chat about that. So just some background, we've got about, I think it's 13 members here in Geelong. About 7 are actively doing projects, and the reason some aren't is they've been very active in the past, but they're getting on a bit. So they provide advice and help and materials, and we meet once a month where we go through all the projects. And with the Inclusive Sports Days, I think we've had 3 here so far. One in, I think it was July last year. There was one in January this year, and one in April this year. And there's been myself and our local part-time occupational therapist and a couple of volunteers, John here and Bob here, which have been the mainstays with the Inclusive Sports Days. But they also have them on the school holidays, which is fun because I get to take my grandson. So he's 7 or 8 years old, and he comes along and helps and has a great time. And now he's pestering me, wanting to know when the next one is on. So it was interesting. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, to be honest, about, but I've been very pleasantly surprised. You know, it's very well organised. Tim and the other staff have been very welcoming. And yeah, there's myself there, the tall, skinny guy with the grandson on my right-hand side. And there's Joanne, who's our local occupational therapist, John, the volunteer. And I think that's Steve, who's from Melbourne somewhere. And anyways, as I said, Tim and the other staff have been very welcoming. And I assume some of you are familiar, some of you may not be, but it's a program for people of all ages, of all abilities, and it's just a couple of hours of great fun. And there's all sorts of sports. So there's Freedom Wheels, which is what I mainly do, but there's badminton, there's wheelchair rugby, there's wheelchair soccer, there's indoor bowls, there's archery, there's the archery there with Steve, there's and a thing called pickleball, which I'd never heard of. So it's an exercise where you learn something yourself. And so the volunteers locally here and from Melbourne and other areas, and with the Solve TAD staff that come down, but some of the sports are supported by local sporting groups. So for instance, the badminton, there's people from Geelong and people from Melbourne. In the tennis, there's people from Melbourne come down. Some of the sports the Solve TAD volunteers run themselves. So there's a combination of people there supporting it, you know. And what I find interesting is you can see here there's a young boy on a bike, and like lots of the other participants, as I said, from any age, from very young to my age, which I won't call old, but they'll come and have a go on the bikes and they'll disappear, and then they'll come back and have another go on the bikes, and then they'll disappear and they'll come back and have another go on the bike. So you can see they're enjoying themselves. And I asked some of the people what they liked, and one of them said to me, oh, he likes the bikes and he likes the pickleball. Now, for those that don't know, pickleball is like a combination of tennis and badminton. It's not very well known here in Australia, but Tim tells me it's very popular in the States and catching on over there, and I can see why. I think, you know, a measure of success of it is, as I said, the people just keep coming back, you know, and you tend to make friends too. The grandson, he comes along and he teamed up with another little boy there, and they had a great time, not only helping, but going around playing all the sports. And I think also it's growing in size. Like, as I said at the beginning, I wasn't sure what to expect, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but say initially there might have been 35 registrations, and I don't know what the middle one was, say 50, but the last one in April, there was about over 90 registrations. So Tim and the guys are doing a good job marketing, but I think also my feeling the word is spreading in the community here in Geelong, you know, in the various groups. And the other thing I find too is some of the people that come in to participate in the sports, I've seen them as clients in, be it projects or be it Freedom Wheels. So you get, you know, it's a very inclusive, friendly atmosphere for everybody there. Like I know it's indoors, but it feels like to me like one of those. You ever been to where you have a sports outdoor sports community thing where you have people and young people and older people, and there's screaming and running around and carrying on and having a great time? Even though we're indoors, we're in a big stadium, it feels like that. It's a fun event for everybody. And I think there'll be more and more people coming back, and we're seeing more and more people come back to the same events. So I actually think it's been a great success in terms of involving the community and getting that message out, and getting people to try things and try sports that they haven't been able to so far. Anyway, so that's just a very brief view on my thoughts on it and how I've felt about it. And I must say, congratulations to all the people that have been involved. Thanks, Hassan.
Thank you, Kirk. Just a round of applause. Tom, can we check if you have any questions from the audience on that? Okay, thanks. Thanks, everyone. Do we have any questions for the Inclusive Sports Day?
Just a matter of, not so much a question, but it was interesting that Geelong, the last time we had people from the local hospital coming down to gather information and take things back to the hospital.
Yeah, it's so David, one of our volunteers, just mentioning that he was part of this sports day last time, and he saw people coming and showing interest from the hospital, which is great. And I think it's a great initiative by SolveCAD, especially I would say at the regional locations of Victoria, so they can actually have access to these exciting activities all over the year. So thanks to everyone who is involved, and just to keep things running. I would like to say thanks to again our speakers, and just a round of applause for everyone. Thank you, Kirk. So moving towards the closing section of our Tech Talk today, I would like to request one of our board director and interim deputy chair, Laura, for her closing talk on this exciting Tech Talk event.
There we go. I managed to get off mute. Thank you very much. So I'm really pleased to be with you all, albeit it's virtually, to share some closing remarks following today's Tech Talk. But before I do that, let me introduce myself, as I'm thinking many of you might be wondering who I am. So I'm one of the newest board members, having joined the SolveTAD board in November last year, and I'm now acting deputy chair of the board, given the recent leadership movements. One of the reasons I was really attracted to volunteer my time on the board of this wonderful organisation was because of the difference you all make to people's lives, and we've seen some really great examples of that today. My background is in technology and more recently in customer experience. And I'm in awe of how you guys combine your engineering and technology capabilities to give our customers a truly life-changing experience. So firstly, let me also extend my thanks once again to Professor Bronwyn Hemsley for her great talk on 3D printed food. And I'd like to commend those volunteers who presented their innovative solutions today. Don and Kirk, thank you so much. Listening to all the speakers today, there's a clear theme of better together. Professor Hemsley spoke about the collaboration across professionals for all three of the things she touched on: the repurposing of smart speakers, the augmented reality, helping people learn how to do things, and of course the 3D printing, making that pureed food far more interesting and appealing. And I heard Don speak about the huge value of volunteers and health professionals collaborating in designing the amazing car simulator that helps patients practice before they go home. And Kirk, I also heard you say how we came together, local supporters and volunteers, to provide people with disabilities and their families that experience of that range of accessible and inclusive sport and recreation activities. And I learned yet another thing, that there's a sport called pickleball. So having attended the presentations that other volunteer colleagues gave at the AGM around Christmas time, and again today, you've left great first impressions in my mind of the work that you do as volunteers and staff. And the impact that you have is just tremendous and encouraging. And what's always so amazing is the diversity of skill that our technical volunteers bring, and the way your passion and innovation comes together, which yields solutions which would otherwise no way have been possible. Clearly better together. I also want to acknowledge that pretty much everyone in this session today has experienced some degree of change in the last few weeks with Anthony's resignation. And I don't want to walk past this significant change. As you well know, SolveTAD has been changing the lives of people living with disability for nearly 50 years, thanks to your magnificent work. And on behalf of the board and the interim CEO, I want to reassure staff and volunteers that the leadership change will have no impact on the need and the opportunity to help people living with disability. So on behalf of the board, I thank staff and volunteers for continuing your great work through times of change. We're here to support you. And if you've got any questions at any time, just send them through to myself or Andrew or Mark, and we'll do our very best to answer them. So once again, thanks to everybody for attending today's session, and to Amelia, for Jenny, for opening the session, and Hassan and everyone else in organising today's event. A very big thank you to you all. If you're on site, I think you now get to enjoy some socialising over morning tea. So thanks, happy volunteer week to everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Laura.